a lot of it was, again, talking to myself, sounds a little bit crazy really, but, continually telling myself that it's, the right thing to do, and okay, maybe I'm not so good at this, or I don't have experience of that, but, there's still that determination in my mind that.
Welcome to the Raw and Real podcast. Are you dreaming of changing your life through opening a business, or are you curious what obstacles entrepreneurs had to overcome on their journey? Then you're in the right place. My name is Agnes Bilik and I'm your host. Hey everyone, welcome back to Raw and Real today. I really appreciate that you're coming back to learn about how to overcome your fears and struggles to start following your dreams and your ideas. Today's guest on the show is Chris Hayes. He's the founder of the robotics platform Bot-Hive. Hey Chris, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's really a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So can you first give us maybe an overview of what exactly Bot-Hive is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bot-Hive is the world's first digital marketplace and platform specifically for robotics, AI, and autonomous systems. So essentially, we are connecting robotic manufacturers and autonomous system manufacturers, so think drones, self-driving cars, with small and medium-sized businesses who are looking to start their automation journey and want to use robotics and autonomous systems to help improve their company's efficiency, productivity, and competitiveness.
And when you started the company, how did you come up with the idea to go into robotics?
Yeah, it's a good question, really. I think there's always been a slight interest in robotics. Not nothing kind of huge, but it was really more around the opportunity, because we understood that there is quite a big problem, especially in the UK, with actually a lack of robotics and a lack of technology helping to drive businesses forward and to make them more competitive.
And when you started the company, were there any mental hurdles you had to overcome, like to really go for it?
Yeah. I mean, quite a few. The first one really was the fear of failure. We didn't know much about the industry, obviously, when we first kind of started out. So it's, you've really got to put yourself on the line. You've got to really stick your neck out and go for it. But obviously, you're not well known in the industry. You don't know a lot about the industry. And I've never really started a business before like this. So that there is a lot of kind of doubt really about whether or not you can do this. And also, you're worrying about what other people are thinking about you as well at the start. You're kind of thinking, well, what are my peers going to say? What are other professionals in the industry going to say? You've got these kind of young guys coming out and they're trying to make an impact in this industry, but they don't really have that much experience in robotics, really. So yeah, and obviously, there's the risk of having to leave a good job. There's a risk of knowing that it could fail, not earning any money. There are bills you have to pay, mortgages, all the day-to-day bills that everybody has to pay, and you don't have the security of a permanent full-time job wrapped around you. So that there are a lot of mental barriers that are sitting in your way that you've got to kind of break through yet.
And for example, the first one, you mentioned the fear of failure. So how did you in the end find the strength to go for it and to silence out the voice in your head?
Well, I think that was one thing that really drove me. And that's what, it does continue to drive me. The fear of failure, not letting myself down, not letting other people down, kind of who are also involved in this kind of journey. That really drives me forward. The fact that I really want it to be a success and I don't want it to fail is definitely part of the reason that I'm continuing to do what I'm doing, and that's one of the reasons that makes me kind of drive through some of the barriers that are kind of stood in the way. Because I mean, I don't really want to fail, and I'm not really like that in my kind of life. I want everything to really succeed, or for me to at least give it, the best shot possible. I want to make sure that I'm winning. So that fear of failure is actually, something that is a bit of a barrier, but it's also something that drives me through that.
Mm. And are there certain activities maybe you engage in that help you overcome that fear?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is about, speaking with other people, getting their opinions on things, sharing my kind of thoughts and, my concerns. It's really about speaking to people who are there to support you. Um, and that then kind of gives you the confidence that, you are doing the right thing, and there's definitely merit in what we're doing. The opportunity is there. So by talking to people, it really helps to build your own kind of confidence, and especially if they're supportive, because they'll probably tell you, okay, well, maybe that's not a particularly good idea, try this, but you're definitely on the right track. So that's one thing that I do, is speak to people, but also, I give myself kind of pep talks, in my own head, to say, look, you're doing the right thing. Okay, maybe this hasn't gone well today, or there are things that just aren't looking good right now. We're not getting the kind of traction we're not getting the sales that we expected. We're getting, not backed by investors, we're getting not backed by clients. But you just got to persevere and have confidence in yourself and the team and the idea that, with that persistence, you will eventually start to break down those barriers, and have some more successes. So it's a combination of really kind of speaking to myself, telling myself that, things will be good. I just got to persevere, but also speaking to people, reading books, listening to other podcasts, just to see how other people are experiencing things and how they've dealt with similar situations.
Do you have an example for us? What kind of books or podcasts were especially helpful for you?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there are. I mean, there's probably one or two books that I've read. I can't remember the name, but it's really around building your own business. There's actually a good autobiography by Richard Branson, and he just kind of details his whole kind of business life and his career. And there's lots. You can find lots of inspiring articles on the internet, on LinkedIn, for example, about other relatively well known business leaders who have had to go through exactly the same kind of process. Just to talk about Richard Branson, because that's a biography that I've read recently. He had very similar struggles at the start, and as a kind of a founder of a fledgling business, you can really relate to what he's saying. And the inspiring thing is, I mean, he's obviously one of the most well-known kind of businessmen in the world. So
For sure, yeah.
So you can say, right, well, he's gone through the same kind of things. Obviously, he's had a lot of luck on the way, fine, but that still gives you a bit of inspiration to say, well, he was in my shoes, and look where he's at now. And I know for sure that pretty much every other successful business person or business leader, has been in that same position. So I mean, they're really good ways to reinforce, your vigor and your kind of plan and determination to continue with the venture.
You also mentioned that you had really self-doubts about your skills, whether you would be really able to do this. So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a lot of it was, again, talking to myself. Sounds a little bit crazy, really, but continually telling myself that it's the right thing to do, and okay, maybe I'm not so good at this, or I don't have experience at that, but there's still that determination in my mind that I am I'm on the right tracks, and your gut instinct also tells you that as well. I think that's a really important thing to listen to. And yeah, talking to other people is really key to help get over some of the doubts that you have. Speaking to friends, speaking to ex-colleagues, speaking to peers, and getting them to reinforce your idea, and sharing. It's also good to share your concerns and share your fears with these people, because that really does open you up. They can see that you're vulnerable, and I think human beings tend to want to help people that are feeling a bit vulnerable, with the right kind of advice, really. So yeah, being open to hearing advice and different angles of ideas is really helpful. But a lot of it is about yourself. A lot of it, because you can't turn around to a group of people and ask them every time you have a doubt, because there are lots of times where you're on your own or you're not around people. So a lot of it is about having that mental determination and strength inside of you to kind of tell the other side of your brain that's saying, you can't do it or you're not good enough. The other side of your brain saying, actually, yeah, I am. Ignore what that other side of your brain is saying, and you got to continue to go for it.
Besides self-talks, are there any activities that you engage in to strengthen yourself mentally?
I'd say that I read, articles on the internet that offer inspiration. Again, there are books as well. There's some podcasts. There is one that I listened to recently, which is by a guy called Alistair Campbell, who, yeah, he was part of a very successful Labour government in the UK. It's more around politics, but it really he focuses on leaders both in business and politics and in sport that have been incredibly successful. And he interviews them like you are with me, and they talk about, again, what have they had to go through to get to where they are. And we're talking about world leaders, Angela Merkel, for example, the German chancellor.
I know her, yeah.
Yeah, you obviously know her. Going to, and famous sporting people as well, especially in the UK. And, he speaks to them in depth about, the personal struggles and sacrifices and the mental barriers that they've had to go through to get to where they are. So that kind of thing is really inspiring, and that really helps to, it really helps you to understand that the negative concerns that you have about yourself are absolutely normal, and everybody has them. And people have experienced that, in a super high level office, government, in the sporting world, in the business world, and they are still, a successful, person in their own industry sector. So that absolutely helps to reinforce the negativity sometimes that creeps into your mind.
And you mentioned that you went into robotics, but you actually barely had knowledge about the industry. So how did you gain the knowledge? What was your strategy to really?
Yeah, it's really about immersing yourself in the industry, which is exactly what we've done. The rest of the team are based at Bristol Robotics Laboratory in the UK. That is the leading academic research centre for robotics in the UK. So they are at the epicenter of robotics and autonomous systems, artificial intelligence. So they're in a great place to learn every single day. It's a little bit different for me being based here in Amsterdam, but it's about, following people on Twitter, following people on Instagram, following businesses on LinkedIn, lots of reading, but also lots of speaking to people in the industry.
And what was it like for you to get your first customer on board?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a funny one, because we had a barter agreement with the first customer. So essentially, we said to them, okay, if we can get a good deal on a reseller agreement that we're negotiating, then we will give you kind of a platinum subscription to the website. So it was a little bit of kind of like, well, it's not a real kind of customer because they haven't essentially paid us any kind of hard cash. It's just part of an agreement that we've got.
And what were the benefits they got through the platinum subscription?
So the benefits they get are they have access to our analytics suite. So essentially they can upload their case studies, they can upload their content, they can upload, their sales and marketing material, and then we're going to give them exposure to small and medium-sized businesses who are looking for robotics. So they're coming onto the site and they can then, see their profile, start to understand more about the business, understand more about that technology. So we're giving them exposure. They get access to our analytics suite so they can see who have been looking at their profile, who have been downloading their case studies, where they come from, what their position is within the business. So essentially it acts as sales leads. We're also going to write a featured article in our newsletter. We're going to interview a senior member in the business, and they're going to get some branding opportunities as well on the website. So there's lots of exposure and sales lead opportunities that they will have. We're very, very close to securing one of our first robot sales. So what we're doing is we're partnering with Frank Remiker, who are a leading German robotic manufacturer, and we are going to start to resell their robots into the UK market. And we're probably 95% of the way to securing the first sale for that, which will be a really kind of huge momentous moment for us. Bearing in mind we've only been going for 5 months really. So ask me maybe in one more week, and I can be a bit more detailed on it. Yeah,
that's amazing. But I'm curious because you actually started the company while working full time, right? So you had it going as a side project for a really long time while having still a full-time job. So what were your struggles connected to that and challenges especially?
Yeah, it was tough, to be honest. It was really tough. The last thing you want to do when you've had a long day at work is go home and work on pitches, work on investment decks, work on kind of strategy plans and documents, work on understanding a different sector in the marketplace. These are the last things you want to do. And having a full-time job in itself is tough. That's why it's a full-time job, and that's why you get paid for doing it, because it takes up 7, 8 hours, 9 hours of your day. So I mean, it's a really tough process to go to go through, to be honest. And the thing that really drove me, was the ambition to start a company and to start a startup. But the time is a big issue because there are only so many hours in a day, and if you're working, let's say from 8:30, 9 o'clock to 5:30, 6, and you've got a busy day at work, you're only having maybe 2-3 hours in the evening, maybe in the morning, to actually focus on the other side of your your professional kind of world, really, and that's building the startup. So time is a big issue. Energy also, because you've got to find the energy to go and do it. Whether that's in the morning or in the evening. When we were both working in the other role, myself and the other co-founder, we were up till 10:30, 11 o'clock, speaking to people, trying to build a team, trying to generate content. So it's really tough, really, really tough. And it's something that you have to think about very carefully, and you have to really organize yourself and your time efficiently so you can fit the other area of the startup into your full-time job. So yeah, time, energy, and you've got to make some sacrifices. You can't go out with your friends every night, or at some weekends, because weekends are really the only time you have where you can focus on the startup for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, without having any real interruptions. So that is that's a sacrifice you have to make, really. So it's really tough, and it took 3 years for us to really, or 3.5 years to kind of get to where we are now. And a lot of the stuff you're doing is for nothing because it fails. So you imagine you spend all weekends doing something, or you spend 2 weeks every evening writing a pitch deck, let's say, or reaching out to potential clients, and it's all for nothing because they ignore you. You never hear anything back. So it's a continual process of really having to put in hard hours, sacrificing weekends, and then for nothing, essentially. And you have to just keep on, kind of going through that, getting through it, having no success, having no traction, having nobody reply to you. It's really it can be really tough.
And what was the thing that kept you going despite all of the rejections for a really long time?
Yeah, it was the will to want to have the startup. That was the driving force. The fact that it's just something that I wanted, and I knew that we had the capability to do it, and also the fact that I didn't want to fail on with the project. The other thing that I refer to is that fear of failure, really. But the real, it was a combination of things: the fear of failure, but also the drive that I have in me to pursue something that I really value, and to pursue something that I know will make me happy and give me fulfillment. Because I knew that starting this and, yeah, building your own culture and your own business, even if it's small, is massively fulfilling. That sense of fulfillment and purpose really do drive me forward. And the sense that I will be really happy in this role, starting the business, is something that definitely kind of drove me forward. It's really all about the purpose and feeling of fulfillment, driven by also the fear that I did not want to fail. That failure in this really won't be an option, and I will continue to get rejected and not hear back from anybody until I make it, because I know I will, and I know with the determination and the drive and support of people around me, I'm capable of doing it. So it's also understanding and releasing the capability inside you, because I think a lot of people are capable of so many incredible, cool, impressive things. Everybody is.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just about what is it that is going to get that out of you. What are the emotional drivers that bring that out of you? And you've got to find that. You've got to find that kind of purpose. And I think when you find that, you there's this whole new side to yourself that you never really knew existed. And when you start to release that capability and fulfillment, it's really so rewarding. You feel it's such a rewarding thing. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely the driving forces behind it. Yeah.
So how did that work for you? How did you find your own purpose?
Yeah, it's taken a long time, really. I think you go through life, the early stages of life, you don't really know what you want to do. You don't understand the world. You don't understand how things operate. You don't really understand yourself, I think. So, without kind of getting, too deep and meaningful, it's a bit of a journey to understand who you are and what motivates you and drives you. And for me, having worked in large business corporations, working with, well-known businesses and brands, I always knew that I could do something better. I could build a better culture, a better work atmosphere, a better work environment. I could build a better business, deliver better value to customers, and also, business has always been interesting kind of to me. I didn't realize it until, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, but that was the reason why I've always been working in kind of business roles, commercial roles, because I enjoy, that side of life, really. Speaking to people, engaging with people, building products that deliver value that people really like, and come back and use again. And yeah, it's something that's always really kind of given me a lot of interest, and I've always been involved in that. That's been my life ever since I kind of left university. So, when I finally understood that, this is what I need to do, and I don't have to be part of another business to do it. I could go and I can do that on my own. That was the moment where I felt a light bulb go off in my head, and I could feel my emotions, coming alive. You start to feel alive more as a person, I think, when you're pursuing something you really fulfill, as opposed to kind of being a bit of a zombie and, just coasting through your job or life. You're just coasting. There are no ups and downs that make you feel alive and make you feel like a human being. And when you finally understand what your kind of purpose is in life, and that can take, time. Some people are really lucky, they understand that early and they go for it, early in their 20s. Other people find it maybe when they're 40. But when you do, you feel alive as a person, because you have, it is a bit like an emotional roller coaster. But that's what makes you a human, and you really feel like you're living, as opposed to just coasting and being a bit of a zombie and just going through the motions of life. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And in general, you mentioned also that you know that you're gonna get rejected more often and you experienced failures. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about a failure that took you 2 steps back and then later 20 steps forward?
Yeah. So we embarked on another startup venture 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. We built a marketplace for marketing professionals, and we were linking them to marketing agencies. And we found an investor in London. We built an MVP, and we were working, all hours of the day to try and make it happen. The other co-founder moved to London to pursue the venture. I kind of quit a job and went into another role, which gave me a bit more freedom to work on the startup. So there were personal sacrifices that were made, and we were finishing our jobs, and then we were working till 10:30, 11, midnight, 1 a.m. to try and build that side of the business and get traction. So we put a lot of effort and time, work, money as well, our own money, and we didn't have a lot. Still don't. And yeah, so a lot of personal sacrifice and time and energy that was spent, and we realized that the investor that we worked with just wasn't giving us anything really. The things that he promised, the team that he gave us in who were based in India, just just wasn't the right match. They weren't working to the standard we wanted them to work to, and we quickly realized that the product that was being built was just far substandard. It just wasn't good enough. It was miles away from where it needed to be to get any kind of commercial traction. So that was really tough, and we kind of sat there and we thought, you know what, we've partnered with the wrong guy. He's got shares in the business. He won't respond to our calls, our emails. The product that his team are building is just bad, and how we can't get him out. We need to cut him loose, but we can't. So we came to the tough decision that we just had to end it basically, and we had to close it all down, and everything that we put into it was for nothing, essentially. Well, you say that, but you then realize that you've learned a lot actually in that whole process. So it's not
right.
It's not for nothing. But at that time, you're kind of like, oh, all the energy, all the late nights, all the sometimes sleepless nights thinking about stuff, that spending money on things and not having any money, savings, personal sacrifices, and that's all gone. It's all out the window because we made a bit of a bad judgment call on the person we partnered with. We were maybe a bit too eager, too excited that somebody, after all the doors we'd knocked on, one person opened the door and let us in, and we really pursued that quite hard because nobody else wanted us. It's, I guess, you learned that as well. It's as soon as somebody shows you any kind of business affection, you kind of jump at the chance, really, because that he's the first one that really sees anything in you. So you go for it, and then to understand that all has to end is huge. It's a big setback because we'd spent 2-3 years trying to build that, getting excited, really believing it was going somewhere. So
yeah, that's a long time.
So yeah, so and then it just goes out the window. So that was a big, it was a failure. We failed with that venture, and yeah, we were left with nothing. We had to start all over again.
So what was the main lesson you learned from that?
The main one, there were quite a few. The main one is really be careful about who you partner with, and that partnership is a true partnership. It's a true match. It's a two-way partnership. You talk, they listen. They talk, you listen. And you really have to get to know the person, really. Because sometimes it's kind of like a marriage or a relationship. It's very, very true. There have to be alignments on the vision. There has to be an alignment on the way you both work. So are they going to get too involved? Are they not going to get involved at all? You've got to find that right balance that works for both of you. How much space are they going to give you to do your own thing? Will they be there to talk to you when you need some advice? When you need a friendly ear to listen to your thoughts and your concerns. So it's about finding the right match and the right balance in the relationship, the right dynamic. Is, I think, really, really important. And that you can relate that to a lot of things in life: friendships, relationships, business relationships. It's about understanding the other person, making sure they understand you, and ensuring there's a good dynamic there, and that you're able to work well together. And that was, I think, a huge learning for us, because we just didn't do that. We just got so excited that somebody was interested, and we just kind of went for it without really taking too much consideration into the whole partnership and the match, and how will that play out over the next 3, 4, 5, 12 months essentially. So yeah, making sure that you find the right partner, and the right partner is really key, because you might be in a good position. You might have 2, 3, 4 different partners that you can work with. Even if it's 2, it's about making sure you get the best one, And even if it's one, it's about, talking and communicating and coming up with some kind of plan that works for both of you. So, you've got to compromise maybe a bit in your own approach to make it work.
And how did your perspective overall change now through the experience of failure?
It hasn't really changed the way I deal with it too much, because I always knew that failure would come. I guess one thing that I learned to do was speak to people about it and be open about it, and share what's happening, because they will be there to support you, or they should be if you've got the right kind of friends and family, really. And to know that failure is a part of success. Every person fails. Every person has issues. Even if you could look at a business that's doing super well, you'll know for sure that there are some issues there going on underneath the surface. Same with a relationship. If you think about a couple that have been married for 40, 50, 60 years, they would have had problems through their relationships, and it's about overcoming them and learning from them, and also having the confidence and the belief, in yourself, and let's say the startup, that it will work eventually, and that you have the capability to make it work, which is really important. But I think for failure, for me, it was really important just to speak to people. It was important for me to reflect on it a bit, but also learn from that. It's super important, because you don't want to be making the same mistakes again. And every time there's an opportunity to learn, that essentially will make you or help you to become successful, and it will help you and propel you forward, because you've got that invaluable experience and you know where you went wrong. So yeah, dealing with it, speak to people. I think that's always the best way, I think. Yeah.
And having that perspective that you can learn from it, or like, okay, it's happening, I'm learning from it. Does it change something for you? Like, are you more positive towards failure if you have that thought?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It starts to become a little bit more normal, and you start to accept it, and it's not this taboo subject anymore. It's not this kind of bad word, because I think a lot of people associate failure with this kind of whole negative. There's a lot of negativity around it, and it doesn't. It definitely doesn't have to be like that. It can be used as a positive force, and that failure can, one, teach you a lot of things that you didn't know previously, and it can also give you invaluable experience to help path out the future of your business venture, let's say. So absolutely, it makes you look at failure in a more positive light, because there's so much you can learn from failing, and failing is a part of life. It's normal to every person. You can go onto the streets today, and every person you speak to would have gone through a failure, or they would have gone through a really tough time in their life, or they would have had lots of lows in their life. So everybody goes through it, and it's about understanding what happened, and also using that as a driving force to propel you forward. But yeah, the more you fail, if you fail fast, you'll succeed faster. I think that's a good way of looking at it, and it really does allow you to put a positive light on failure, because you learn a lot.
I think it's also important to fail smart, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, failing smart and failing fast. They're two great ways to fail, because you will fail. So fail smartly, understand from it, and do it fast. Like, go in, okay, it's failed, move on to something else.
Is there something that you can tell someone if they have a certain idea, but they're not really sure whether to pursue it, or they're doubting? What could you tell them to encourage them to do it?
If you've got a good idea and you're doubting it, go and speak to other people. speak to your friends, speak to peers in that industry sector. Pick up the phone, put a call in, say, hey, I've got this idea. Do you think it could be relevant to your industry sector? Send some emails, but speak to people. That's the most important thing, because they will give you a feeling of whether or not it's a good or a bad approach, essentially. And it can also reinforce the idea being a good idea, or it can reinforce the fact that it's not a good idea, and that means you should maybe go and focus on another idea that has more purpose, that can offer more value, that can help people, or can bridge a gap in a marketplace, or connect, to people, or to businesses. So if you have, and you all have concerns 100% about the idea, get out there, speak to people, and test the idea, pilot the idea. If you are in a position to do that, do a little test and see what happens. Post something on social media. Hey, I've got maybe this idea, or something on LinkedIn. Hey, I've got this idea. What do people think of it? Sometimes you've got to be a bit smart and make sure that people aren't going to steal that if it is a really good idea. So sometimes you've got to also bear that in mind. But that's why speaking to friends, family, if you've got peers, if you're already in a professional working environment, you can go and speak to them, people that you trust, because you've always got to be mindful that you don't want to, if it is a good idea, you don't want to give it away because someone could go and steal that. But definitely speak to people.
But I think in most cases, people don't really have the drive to actively do something if they hear a good idea, because everyone's too lazy. So
yeah, and that's an issue, because that you can only do that yourself. That comes to your own makeup. You have to have that drive to make it happen, because it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. It's I think the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I think everybody has an idea, you're right, but the biggest challenge is actually finding that drive within yourself to go out and reach it. And that's why that's why every person on the street hasn't won an Olympic gold medal, or a World Cup, or started a successful business, or really achieved something with their life, climbed Mount Everest, because not everybody has that drive. But that's why it's important to find the levers that drive you. And I think for a lot of people, they haven't found that. They haven't found something that really motivates them, or really inspires them, or gives them a true sense of purpose. Because I think when you can start to understand that about yourself, you'll quickly understand that you're actually not that lazy. And the thing that drives you is that purpose, and that need to fulfill an area of your life. And until you really start to take a deeper dive into who you are, and really understand what motivates you as a person, you'll find that, because I think everybody can be lazy. I can be lazy sometimes, and I have been lazy in the past, but it was really because I didn't understand what really drove me as a person. And when you find that, then it gives you a whole new perspective on life. And also you'll find that there's another 100% in your energy tank, which you had no idea even existed, and that allows you to move forward and pursue something.
And do you have one last key takeaway that you want to share with us? Something that maybe helped you grow personally?
I think one thing that helps you grow, or for me, that really helps me grow, is finding the right person to work with, and sharing the journey really together. Because it's very hard to do it on your own. And if you can find the right partner, especially in business, that again gives you the determination, but also, the confidence to do something together. And through that whole journey, you learn so much about yourself and your capabilities and things that you would never learn, I think, if you were in a normal kind of day-to-day job. So yeah, finding someone to share the journey with, somebody that you can speak to when things are bad, someone you can speak to when things are good, helps you to pursue, a dream. But during that journey, I think that's where you really learn a lot about yourself.
And do you have maybe a tip on how to find the right partner? Because that's quite a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. It's really ensuring that there's a good bonds, there's a good dynamic. You're aligned professionally on your visions, on your ambitions, on the way you see a business, on the kind of culture you want to build. They're reliable. They have the right kind of determination and drive. So, you've really got to look for a few key indicators that will make that person, hopefully successful. That they're not going to be perfect. That nobody's perfect, and there are going to be lots of flaws. But there should be, 2 or 3 different indicators. Are they reliable? Can you trust them is absolutely essential. And do they have the work ethic? Will they work hard to achieve it? I think are 3 really, really good, important factors to look for in a person at the start, because nobody's the finished article. You're always evolving, especially, as you kind of go through life. But I would say, yeah, reliability, trust, hard work are 3 good things you can look for in a potential partner at the start. Yeah.
So 3 key traits. And how can people find you online? How can they contact you?
So I'm contacted or contactable on LinkedIn, Chris Hayes, or if you go onto our website, Bot-Hive.com, you can find my contact details there. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, and thanks for being so open about your experience and also about your failures and your fears. And for everyone who's watching or listening, please contact Chris if you want to get more advice from him. And thanks for listening.